You're listening to Cobb, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
A couple of episodes ago, you made a promise. Can I hold you to that today?
Yes, of course, Sharan, you can. What promise was this?
We designed a proposition for a healthy chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we looked at the entire proposition building, the fab laddering, and we put all of it together in the form of a winning competitive edge framework.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you even called it the healthy treat very creatively.
I can't miss the sarcasm in this one. Huh?
And you positioned it for NCCS A adult women.
Yeah.
And you said in one of the following episodes, you'll walk us through how this can be communicated as a marketing brief.
Mm.
Can we do that today?
Yes, let's do that. Surely.
Superb. But I know when everybody calls it the marketing brief, you call it the marketing pitch.
Mm.
Can you start with that? Why is it a pitch and not a brief?
Okay. So, when you brief somebody, when you say you are briefing somebody, you assume that you have significantly more knowledge, and the other person is somebody whom you would want to give it down to. So, it is almost like, thinking that the person receiving the brief is possibly beneath you. However, my vision of a marketing and marketer is that their job is to create conviction within themselves and in the entire world or the ecosystem around them. So, therefore, whenever I think of a brief or any kind of meeting, I believe that a marketer is always pitching their ideas.
Mhm.
Regardless of whether it is their subordinates, their superiors, their bosses, their agencies, or the consumers. So, therefore, I call it the marketing pitch framework rather than the marketing brief framework.
I think that's a wonderful perspective because instead of telling people what you expect them to do, to getting their buy-in by pitching it to them, I think it's a wonderful perspective for all marketers to carry.
I'm glad you liked it.
I do. I like the perspective of it because it kind of brings a sense of humility in the marketing people, and we're not necessarily known for humility, are we?
Correct. I'm sure you aren't.
And getting back on track, we
Mm.
said it's a healthy chocolate.
Yeah.
Now, how are we communicating the proposition that you built in a couple of episodes ago
Hmm.
to the other stakeholders?
Okay. So you in one of our very early episodes, Sharan, we spoke about branding before marketing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that is how we have followed through via our frameworks. We did branding and then we are getting into marketing.
Right.
Just to recapture some of the decisions we took, during the branding exercise was that we said that we are getting into healthy chocolate. We will work with all the stimulus, all the category drivers, etc., which trigger the consumption of chocolate.
Mhm.
And we will present the consumers with an option that is healthy as well as tasty. Our decided proposition was that we said we are offering perfect trinity,
Right.
yeah, for their treat occasions. And what was this trinity about? It was about good portion control, great ingredients, and greatest taste.
Right.
Yeah, so good, greater, greatest. So that is how we wanted to pitch to them. Yeah. And we were not talking to core consumers of this. We were talking to a small portion of them, which I believe would be the growth consumers for years to come.
Right.
And the way we had defined growth consumers were people who will contribute significantly to the incremental growth of the brand. They might not contribute significantly to today's revenues of the brand, yeah, or the category.
Right.
So that is the, possibly making sure that all of us are on the same page where we started from. Let's go ahead.
Hmm.
So this one, Sharan, what we have to think about is that you're talking to people, you're pitching to people who are going to create some kind of communication around it. And this communication could be meant for any medium. For a traditional medium like radio, cinema, outdoor, or TV, or any kind of digital medium, it could result into a static or a GIF or an interstitial or a digital film.
Right.
But in all of these are aimed at doing something. They are aimed at creating some kind of consumer behavior which results into some kind of business for the brand that is investing behind it.
Fair.
And hence it is critical that our listeners are able to appreciate the fact that all of this entire journey and this entire linked relationship of what they are doing and how does it get linked to the business, all of this has to be made visible to them when you are pitching the idea to them.
Okay.
And therefore today's episode, the framework that we are talking about, the marketing pitch framework, captures all the necessary ingredients which will allow you to pitch all of this to any party that is on the other side. In this
Got it.
case, it could be an agency or it could be any of your colleagues, friends, investors, anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So, therefore, let's go on this discovery. So, part of it is about recapturing what we have decided. So, we first start with consumer side. On the consumer side, we say what is the chosen consumer profile. And then, as I said earlier, the chosen consumer profile for us is NCCSA, adult women.
Right.
Yeah, when we say adult women, for people who don't understand this term, adult is 25 to 40, 45 kind of a age bracket. So that is the women that we are talking about. And what is the proposition? What is the brand promise? Brand promise is the perfect trinity, good portion control, great ingredients, and greatest taste.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the next section, Sharan, is something that we have to really understand very closely. This section details for anybody who's trying to understand the brand what is the expected change in consumers
Hmm.
after this communication. What do the consumer think, feel, do today versus what will they think, feel, do tomorrow after they are exposed to the communication.
Right. Perfect.
So, therefore, this showcases the change in thinking, which comes from your head,
Mm-hmm.
therefore, your feeling, which comes from the heart, and therefore, the doing, which comes from the hand. It captures the entire journey and therefore allows the agency or any other creative partner to choose where is it that they want to over index the most to create the desired behavior.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So let me illustrate this by taking an example of our brand, which is Healthy Treat.
Mm-hmm.
So we said that before the campaign, the consumer would think, and because we're talking about the women, so
Mm-hmm.
she would think, I wish there was a healthy chocolate on offer. Yeah, they encounter many occasions which trigger the need to consume her chocolate. Now, because she is watching her weight, she is watching her health, she constantly wishes that there was a healthy chocolate on offer, because in this day and age there is almost everything has a healthier version that is available, but she feels that a chocolate can either be healthy or be tasty.
It's binary.
Yes, it's a binary thing, and that is something which has been created in our head by some of the incumbents who started this category. And therefore, what she does, unfortunately, she consumes regular chocolate and she feels guilty about it. Yeah, so that's the journey.
Right.
And ideally, you are not supposed to craft this journey on your own. You're supposed to go do consumer immersions, understand this, and then come back and write this down. But I'm
Right. For this purpose,
hypothesizing.
let's assume you already visited the consumer.
Yes, I'm hypothesizing on behalf of consumers,
Right.
partly because I'm of the same age and because I see female around me doing the same thing, and
Are
hence
you
this is the
sure?
suppose.
You sound 20 years older than the target audience anyway.
No, there is an upper bracket of 45 as well. Don't forget that. Okay. So once the and here we don't know the communication yet. We don't know what the communication would say, but we know that the communication would give the brand promise. Yeah, the trinity. So therefore you assume that this trinity lands with the consumers, and hence what is the post campaign impact? Post campaign, the consumer would think a chocolate that's healthy and tasty sounds like a great idea. Therefore they feel that I definitely want to try a healthy and great tasting chocolate.
Gives them a compelling reason there.
Yes, you give her a compelling reason, trigger intrigue, and therefore make her feel that she wants to try. And therefore what she does, she tries out the healthy treat. What I've written there is she also discovers the delight of portion control, because I believe that that is a more of a discovered benefit at a behavioral level, and hence my pack that I do would have to trigger that portion control at that level on the pack itself. The pack would have to do a harder job.
As a discovered benefit, it means that they don't buy it because they understand the benefit. They discover this after they made the purchase.
Yeah, so this becomes my what I call as tertiary benefit.
Right.
Yeah, so my communication possibly will talk about ingredients, healthy and taste, and portion control becomes a discovered benefit once they get it.
You're listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands. Your hosts are Sudeep Chawla, marketing practitioner, business leader, and educator to advertising and marketing professionals, and Sharavana Raghavan of Vitriol Innovations, consultants to consumer-facing brands and businesses. For more information, go to copcast.net. If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by telling your friends and rating us.
So this becomes one part of the record that I want to create. The second part is looking at the consumer side. So what we did was we looked at the consumer and the brand side, and we put those down. Now when the agency is trying to think through where is it that this communication is going to be seen by the consumer, it is important that you create a consumer decision making journey for them.
Okay.
Yeah, again, your discovery of consumer decision making journey should come from your consumer immersions.
Right.
Yeah, but again, I've hypothesized, and for me stage 1 is that the consumer is exposed to any stimulus or occasion that triggers chocolate desire.
Right.
The reason I said occasion is, Sharan, last time we spoke about the fact that festivities or sometimes gatherings or some sudden good news, etc., triggers those desires a lot of the time. Cravings, yeah, any kind of post meal craving, etc. Those are all occasion based triggers. And then there are some stimulus. Sometimes you look at an advertising, you look at somebody eating a chocolate, and you look and you feel like eating one. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes two people are talking about chocolate over a podcast and you feel eating like one. So all of those are stimulus. So stage 1 is triggering chocolate desire. Stage 2 is, you would find that in a lot of them they first try to resist. Sometimes they succeed, a lot of the times they don't. And then stage 3 is that she will then either online or physical store, she would look for her tried and tested brand. Yeah. Because this is where they might not experiment too much unless the brand makes a great pitch for experimentation.
Right.
Yeah. Stage 4 is where the consumption comes in, and that is where also she decides to have just a little bit but ends up having more than she thinks she should have. And then the stage 5 is obviously she feels satisfied, satiated, but she feels guilty because she had more and she knew that it is not healthy, etc. And then stage 6 is she decides to stay away from chocolates and only till the next occasion or the next craving strikes. Yeah, so that's the cycle for a chocolate. Fairly simple.
Yes, it's and simple and fairly obvious too. I don't think many people will dispute this.
Correct. Now you need to also make sure that where exactly in this cycle you are pitching. So in my head I was pitching on stage 1 first, which is that I want to create a stimulus. Now,
Right.
occasions are something that she will come across every now and then. So, first, my first opportunity is to create a stimulus where I tell her that there is a chocolate that exists, which
Hmm.
is tasty and healthy.
Right.
And therefore, then she feels like having it, and therefore, hopefully, she immediately orders or she goes out looking for my chocolate.
Right.
And then, if I am able to do that, then I completely make her skip stage two. Therefore, she does not try to resist. She actually goes out and looks for it.
Because she understands the healthy aspect of the chocolate.
Healthy and tasty aspect of it. The
Right.
second opportunity that I have, Sharon, is at stage three, where she is going and looking for a tried and tested brand. And now, suppose she had a festivity at home, she resisted, but she thought that, okay, let me get some chocolate. She goes to the store. That becomes my second opportunity to get into her consideration set. So
Right.
that is where I have to trigger discoverability or
Hmm.
some kind of recommendation from the person who is present there, which is the shopkeeper or my promoter,
Hmm.
and then the power of my packaging and the power of my proposition such that she picks it up.
Right.
So therefore, for a creative, for an agency, it is important to know that I'm going for stage one and stage three, and hence those are the things that they need to focus on. Yeah,
Got it.
this also guides them, Sharon, on what kind of creatives would the brand need.
Hmm.
Yeah, for example, your stage one is more awareness driven creatives, awareness leading to trials, and stage three is more about creatives for point of buying. And point of buying could be a traditional store, or it could be a quick commerce website, or an Amazon or a Flipkart, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So you do that. Now, once you have captured this and you've given clarity as to where the creatives will be deployed,
Hmm.
then you have to tell them that how does this link with my business objective? Why am I doing what I'm doing, or what I'm suggesting? So,
Correct.
what is my business objective? You give it, go to it three stages. You say, what is my business objective? So, business objective, for example, I've written generate business worth rupees 10 crore. And I say that a business, really start becoming some scale when it starts on an ARR of 10 crore. Yeah. So, I said generate business worth 10 crore. What is my marketing objective, which will help me deliver this business objective?
Hmm.
Marketing objective is I have to generate awareness and trials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
New brand. Yeah.
yeah, new brand trials are very, very critical. And only when I do my trials and those trials live up to the promise that I'm making basis my marketing, people will possibly become repeat consumers. But I'm right now in the phase of creating awareness and trials. Possibly sometime later, I will look at frequency, repeat
Fair
buying,
enough.
etc., etc.
Yeah. Very sensible.
And therefore, to achieve this marketing objective, what is my communication objective?
Hmm.
Yeah, and my communication objective, obviously, there is my proposition that I want to communicate, and I wanted to say that we have to attack this belief that health and taste can't go hand in hand.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah,
You're
Th-
breaking the presumption of it being binary, which
correct.
is discussed earlier. Hmm.
Correct. And this was tying it back to the branding framework, Sharan.
Hmm.
This was stated as one of the barriers also.
Right.
Yeah. So therefore, I'm solving for some kind of a category barrier and creating a niche for myself. Yeah. And I bust a myth and then I present them with an elegant solution which hopefully lives up to the brand promise.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. So that's what there is to it. That's it. Once you've done this, you now have sufficient ingredients to be able to pitch your idea to anybody. You have the whys lined up, you have the route to business lined up, you have your proposition in place. Now from here on, you convert this into some kind of a creative output format, and then you put this on the relevant media landscape, and hopefully reap the rewards after that.
Awesome. I think that's amazing. I think that kind of beautifully rounds up the thinking we had, rather you had in the previous episode, and to then articulate that and sell that conviction, rather pitch that conviction, like you said, to the other stakeholders. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think the best part about this is that it sounds very commonsensical. And that's where the beauty is, because there are no doubts when you put it this way.
And a very simple thing that I would say possibly is that most of what you would do in any of these frameworks, branding or marketing, would definitely be commonsensical, but should be completely, tested and articulated by consumers.
I completely agree. I think thank you for putting this together, because not just the narrative and the discussion over what you've done, but also in the show notes, I think people are going to get a goldmine of information to say how they can brief their ideas, how they can convert their ideas and their vision into a pitch document. I think that's extremely critical, because I believe marketing is in the business of creating change and transference of idea.
Hmm.
And like I keep saying, marketing's job is not to solve the problem, but to identify and frame the right problem. And this is about asking people for help, pitching it to people and saying, help me solve this problem. And I think this is the most critical part of any marketer's job.
I just hope that our listeners find it useful, and I would invite them to share any kind of feedback, comment, suggestions that they might have after they've had a look at the framework in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. But before we wind this up, I know you have a bit of a legend in the way you brief different agencies and stakeholders. So if you were to brief the agencies on your healthy treat, how would you do it?
So, you're making it sound a little more grandiose than it actually is. But, my preferred way of pitching is that, while I create all of these documents give me great amount of clarity of thought and give me enough ingredients to, make sure that whatever I'm pitching sounds convincing and logical.
Mhm.
After that, what I usually like to do is I don't like to expose any of these documents to any marketing partner that I'm talking to.
Oh, wow. Why is that?
I like to tell them a story.
Okay.
So my intrinsic belief is that from the very childhood, all of us are trained to listen to stories, be interested in them, and then get inspired or take out lessons, etc., from them.
Right.
So therefore, I arrange it in my head in a manner such that I'm able to tell a story out of every brief.
Hmm.
And then, at the end of the story is when I tell them that this is what I want you to do. And then I hand this document over to them later, so that when they are
Mm.
thinking about the story, they have the document in their hand and they know that they will not miss out on any important detail that was given out in the story. If I was briefing an agency on this particular, you know, document that we created,
Mhm.
I would possibly start by saying that imagine a woman of about 35-year old. She has a kid who is about 5 or 6 year old, and the woman therefore leads a very very busy life. She has a career to manage. She has a kid, and who in itself is a full-time job, and therefore she is running two full-time jobs beside being a daughter, a sister, and a wife. If you imagine her life, you would realize that while the life is taking toll, she also wants to make sure that she does not lose her penchant for health and her fitness, etc., etc. So while she tries whatever she tries to keep herself in shape, she also starts to make healthy choices, healthy eating choices. And therefore, you would find that she would mix possibly, some amount of multigrain atta in every roti that she makes. She would make sure that, she takes either toned or double toned milk. She starts making healthy choices in everything that she chooses. One of the few places where she can't make a healthy choice is a chocolate.
Mm.
And that is where there is a tension. She wants to get it done, but there are no great options in the category. Because if she has to make a healthy choice, she would end up eating really, really bad tasting chocolate. And that is where we come in. So that is how I would like to, present this.
I think that's very beautiful, the way you put it. I think telling it like a story, I think
Yeah.
it's got its own power.
Yeah. I think it helps you empathize with the consumer, and therefore forces you to put yourself in consumer shoes and then evaluate what you're doing and what is the strength of it, etc. So that is what I find slightly more powerful, rather than saying, okay, this is my first dabba which talks about my proposition, this is my second dabba which talks about consumer decision making journey, etc., etc. Yeah.
That's
So
amazing. I think we go back to even one of the earlier episodes where you say you're not a big fan of frameworks,
hmm,
and then we walk through framework. I think this is the most powerful statement, right? Because frameworks are there for the first person, as in the marketing manager, the brand owner, to organize their thoughts, not necessarily use it to dispense their thoughts with,
hmm,
but to organize their thoughts first and then own it and then sell it to the others. I think
yeah,
that's a brilliant way of putting it. And your story is a lot more powerful than any pitch you can make otherwise.
yeah, yeah. And Sharon, see, we marketers are in the business of creating conviction. If you
Right.
can't give a convincing pitch about what you want to say for 5 to 10 minutes, how do you expect the world to believe your story?
Perfect, Sudeep. Thank you so much for that. I think that's been very informative and also even inspiring for people to figure out how they're going to articulate their pitches to their different stakeholders. Thanks a
Thank
lot
you.
for that.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.